Welcome to another episode of First Down by CoachTools. Today I have Coach Tony Franklin. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here, Justin.
Yes, sir. So Coach Franklin, so you've obviously had a lot of success in your coaching career, and it looks like you started at the high school level. Can you talk a little bit about what drove you initially to pursue a coaching career in football?
Well, that's a good question because I went to college thinking I was going to be a lawyer. And I think about 2 years into college, I decided the last thing in the world I wanted to do was to extend having to go to class, having to continue to go to school. And so I think it was more of just not knowing what to do and, being around the game since I was a kid and having extremely influential people in my life that were coaches. My high school coach, especially Al Giordana, was the person that probably when I was growing up, I wanted to be like him. I admired him, I respected him, feared him, all the things I think that, sometimes make you look up to somebody. But I think that, I was playing college football and I was smart enough to know when to quit because I was a 2-year starter as a running back and I didn't play my last 2 years because I was hurt all the time and my body told me it was time. And so I quit doing it. And then I started I was a physical assistant to physically handicapped kids in a school as a job. And it put me around high school coaches and middle school coaches. And I said, this looks like fun. Maybe I'll go out and help those guys. And so I student taught in 1979 and I was hooked after that.
Great. So you obviously made the transition to college coaching, what it looked like still early on in your career. Can you share a little bit about that experience from going to high school to college?
Well, it was a weird way. It's a way that most guys have probably never gotten into college the way that I did. I wasn't a tremendously successful high school coach that had lots of great players. And so therefore colleges wanted me to come and do it. I'd been coaching high school since 1979. And I met some unknown guy out in the middle of the wilderness at Mount Pleasant, Iowa, named Hal Mummy. I took two slow receivers that could play out there to see if they wanted to continue their careers because I'd called a friend of mine in Texas and said, I got two slow guys that are good receivers. You got any ideas where they could go play? And he said, call this guy named Hal Mummy. He'll take anybody. So literally I drove to Mount Pleasant, Iowa from Murray, Kentucky. And I met the guy named Hal Mummy and, he had some other unknown guy with him named Mike Leach. And as the years went by, when they were at Valdosta State, I was a huge Kentucky fan. I'd had a quarterback that had played there and had grown up loving Kentucky, and they were getting destroyed by Florida. I looked at my wife and I said, I think I'm going to help this guy named Hal Mummy. I think he'd be a good coach at Kentucky. I think I'll help him get this job. So literally called him and said, send me all your stuff. And I had a plan and threw it together, and it worked. It's crazy. And so that's how I got into college coaching. He somewhere along the way said, how do you feel about coaching running backs? I said, awesome. So that's kind of the short gist of the story.
Wow. That's incredible. And also just talking with you over the past, I think it was about a year ago that we initially connected. I remember you telling me that you've had a lot of really successful NFL players that you've coached. So what do you believe, and specifically with quarterbacks and quarterback development, what do you believe are the most important aspects of developing a strong quarterback, both on the field and off the field?
Well, I think there's a couple of parts to that question. The NFL part is number one, you simply just have to have the physical characteristics. And in the early days, that meant you had to be tall and have a big arm. That's not the case anymore. Today you can be a great athlete that's a great runner that can throw. You've still got to be able to throw. But as far as just helping somebody to be the best that they can be as a quarterback, I believe that you can make a huge difference on somebody's success. I know that because I had tremendous success as a high school coach coaching quarterbacks, but then as a college coach, I had tremendous success as well. And I think it was this: find out what they can do, be excruciatingly simple in the details of fundamentals that you provide for them. Don't overwhelm them with things that they have to think about, and then build an offense around what they can do, not what you know. If you simply want to do it around what you know, then you're going to take really good players and make them not very good. If you do it around what they can do and then you build it and you keep the details extremely simplistic, and especially the fundamentals, which is really hard today because of all these quarterback gurus that are out there that are going to, take somebody, take their money, teach them 7 million things, because you have to. If you're going to charge somebody a lot of money and you're going to spend years with them, you're going to have to come up with all kinds of fancy drills that the parent goes, wow, look at this cool thing. They got this new little device out there, and that was definitely worth the money for today. In my humble opinion, I think that some of those guys are probably decent. They do a good job and they have a good heart and they're trying to do the right things. But I don't know where along the path that a high school coach forgot how to coach. When did they all of a sudden not know what to do and how to do it? So I think the best thing is find a good place with a good high school coach and trust that guy, trust the details that they do. I had the number 1 pick in the draft at Cal with Jared Goff. Jared Goff had he had a guru in high school, which was his high school coach. He had a guru in college, which was me. And that was enough to help him to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. So I believe the same thing. Tim Couch was the number 1 pick in the draft at Kentucky, and he had no gurus either. He had guys. And so it's not to say that somebody can't help you get ready for the draft when it's that time, but just be a great player, do the little things right, pay attention to detail, do what they can do, and that'll help you make those guys the best they can be.
Yeah. So going back to simplicity and focusing on the fundamentals, what can you share some examples of what you mean by that?
Well, the first thing with me is that I have a fundamental design routine that a quarterback goes through. It starts with the ball placement. For the ball to be somewhere in the perfect deal, it's going to be at the top of the numbers and slightly below the Adam's apple. And the reason is that when you drop it below the numbers, the ball can get easily stripped. So when you see guys, and there's guys that teach this, they'll teach the ball to be at the bottom of the numbers. They'll sway the ball as they go back. And for some guys, they've got a fast enough release and big enough hands that it's not an issue. But if you'll watch, almost 99% of the strips that take place in football are from 2 things. 1, the ball is low. 2, the hand comes off the football, especially when they get in traffic and somebody gets around them, they take a hand off the ball. That's when the ball gets stripped. I've never once seen a ball stripped where the ball is placed here. One of the reasons I really like Joe Burrow, he's one of the few NFL guys today that when he gets in trouble in the pocket, he doesn't drop the hand down, the ball doesn't come to the side, he has the ball up. It's also a faster movement and a one-piece movement to push the ball back from the top of the numbers back to the ear. It's a lot faster movement to be able to do that. Again, you take Patrick Mahomes, you watch him play and you go, well, he doesn't do that. No, he's Patrick Mahomes. I always tell coaches, you got to overcome your coaching. Everything starts with the base design, base fundamentals. And then when a guy is special and they prove that they can, I always say you got to overcome your coach's coaching to be a great player. We can get you a lot of information, a lot of fundamentals, and a lot of details. And then you got to play football. And sometimes that's just letting it happen naturally. But most guys that you coach in high school are not that guy. They think they are. Their parents think they are. Their gurus giving them those drills, and they can't complete a ball when a guy's running a 15-yard curl. So, my basic designs start with ball placement, feet as wide as the shoulders, feet to stay like a typewriter. We call it Manning Goff footwork. The feet are like a typewriter, 1,000 miles an hour. They never come together. When the feet come together and you have to take a long stride, you lose some of the velocity, and you also lose the ability to place the ball as good as you can. That's basically the two most important things. And then all my drill work is designed around that. When you throw the ball on the run, the most important thing is to let your body flow to the target, so that when the ball is released, that you continue for your body language to go to the target. I tell the guys in the drill work I do, you want to run towards the target to where that you could tackle the guy that intercepts the football if it's a bad throw. And then again, when you got guys that can do just stuff that you don't coach, you still give them the drill work, and then you shut up when they can do things that, you know, that you just don't teach. But most guys can't. Most guys need help. Most guys need those basic fundamentals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think your one point where you said it's not really about being ultra stringent when it comes to your coaching philosophies. And it's like the more adaptable you can be, I think and play to and coach based on the player's strengths, I think that's the way that you really get the most out of your players. So what role do you think like adaptability has played in your career, and especially in your offensive philosophies? So
Right.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, my philosophy, I've been very fortunate that I've been through so many cycles of football. You know, in high school, I ran the veer. In college, we were an NFL two back, extremely complicated offense. I mean, really complicated, so complicated, most of us had no idea what we were doing. So that meant it was too complicated. And then I've been in the I, I've been in the power I, I've been in triple option, I've been in wishbone, power football, play action, wing T, and then eventually in college, you know, the old school air raid system of Hal Mummy. And that really, when I took off in college and built my business of teaching high schools, it was based upon how Hal Mummy ran a practice. Hal Mummy, I thought, was a master in running practice, the organization of practice, and how to every week be simple, and how to coach a quarterback in simplistic ways. Hal did stuff that for the first time I understood what people thought was complicated wasn't complicated. You know, it was kind of like, you know, look, just go through your read progression and throw it to the open guy. You know, and everybody made fun of it and said, oh, well, that's not real football. Well, it actually is. You know, if a guy's open, throw it to him. If he's not open, don't. If he's a good player, get him the ball in space, let him make something happen. So I learned a tremendous amount from those 4 years with Hal Mummy. And then when I got into business, when I thought everything was about spread, throw the ball, blah, 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 as years went by and defenses adjusted, and I was a coordinator at all these different schools in college, what I found out was that defenses eventually adjust. They figure it out. Those guys are smart too. And so when defenses started to get spread all over the place, like everybody is now with 3-man fronts and 3 safeties and stuff, you got to get big again. And so the main thing is that figure out what your guys can do, adapt to their talent, but you do have to schematically adjust to, as defenses get small and spread, and your spread stuff doesn't really matter anymore, is that you got to adjust to that. But the biggest thing that changed all of our careers was when we began to do RPOs. And we did RPOs for 3 years before the word existed. And so we didn't even know. When somebody said to me one day, you know, hey, coach, are you doing RPOs? I go, what is that? Well, we've been doing them. We were one of the originators of them. And I learned simply by Dana Hogan one time talking at one of my clinics. I hired Dana every year and come speak at my deal. And Dana was just up demonstrating something. He goes, yeah, he goes, sometimes I just line up in this 3-back set. We just have our 2 receivers run a couple of routes, and I just tell the QB to throw it to them if they're open. And I thought, that's the most genius thing I've ever heard in my life. And then we took Dana's idea, and then we said, let's do it in everything. And so at Louisiana Tech, that led to 52 points a game. It got us the job at Cal, and it really literally changed the way football was played, because my clients took that idea in high school, and it changed their careers. It changed my career as a coach as well.
Yeah, and going off of that point of simplicity, you mentioned earlier, like it's literally as simple as throwing the ball to somebody who's open. And I think I recently saw one of your tweets where you said, because a lot of high school programs are starting literally today when we're recording this on the 18th. Don't like point number one, throw the ball to somebody who has the same color jersey as you. So it's about simplicity, and I think in today's information age where there's just so much information out there, it's about not overcomplicated. Like when you said you didn't even know you were running the RPO, but sounds like invented it. So that seems to be something that from successful coaches that I've talked to, a common theme.
Yeah, I think the thing that you can get into is overwhelm from information. And I think that Mike Leach always had a really good philosophy about this. And that was, if you add something, what are we going to take out? Because you don't get any more hours. It's not like, all of a sudden we went from a 24-hour day to a 28-hour day. So if you're going to put something in, your practice schedules are going to be the same. What are you going to take out? Because in order to be good at stuff, it was all about repping. That was the How Mummy philosophy. Rep, rep, rep. We can out rep you. We can run the same play over and over again and be better at it than you can defending it, because that's all we're going to do. And I think that then it's just a matter of choosing what it is that you're going to rep, and that's the hard part. And that's still to this day, the biggest thing that Hal has all the credit for the air raid stuff, he and Leach, and which is wonderful. And I think that they should. My thing with Hal was that I don't think that was his best contribution to the game. I think Hal's best contribution to the game was how to practice. I think that's where he was so genius, with how to practice, how to set up an entire year, an organization of practice. And I think that's the thing that's his biggest gift to the game.
Yeah. So as we're going to wrap this up soon, and we're just starting the season, obviously, what advice would you give to all the high school coaches out there that are watching today?
Well, the most important thing is to do what your guys can do. What is not important. There's a lot of guys that used to get up and draw on boards, and I would walk away and go, that guy's the smartest guy I've ever seen. And I have no idea what he just said. I got no clue. And I've seen coaches coach that way. I told you a million times, Johnny, I told you. Well, what you tell him isn't important. It's what he can learn. So the most important thing going in is do what your guys can do. Understand that sometimes if you don't have good enough players, it don't matter what you do, you're going to get your ass beat. It don't make no difference what you do. And make sure that you allow your kids to enjoy the game of football and to get something out of it. If you want to win every game, you want to win a lot of games, a lot of times the number one solution is to move, because you ain't going to do it when you don't have good players. And that's one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, is that, look, son, you want to win championships, you want to have a legacy, you better go where there's good players. So if you're at a place that doesn't have good players, don't be miserable, enjoy it. Teach those guys, educate those guys, make a difference in their lives, do all the things that coaches do, but don't make yourself miserable just because some guy with a fancy shirt on says there's always a way. Sometimes there's not a way. Sometimes you're going to lose just because they're better.
Right. Yeah. Very, very good advice. So, Coach, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your time and advice with the audience here. And for anybody who wants to connect with Coach Franklin, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way is, listen to the podcast, the Coach Tony Franklin podcast, and then also go to CoachTF.com. And we've got all different types of ways that high school coaches have changed their lives, thousands of them over the years now that have changed their lives, have made a better life for their family. We've got guys that have become head coaches in college. We've got guys that have become NFL coaches and have done incredibly well. So there's lots of good information in our program, over 600 hours of teaching and education. So, go to CoachTF.com and see if there's something that fits you.
Yeah, Yeah, and highly recommend doing so. Coach, thank you very much again, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Thank you, Justin. Good talking to you, man. Appreciate it.